What's up, Dads? Your boy Big Dave back with another episode of Culture, Dad's Age and Sword and Cassette. What is up, Mike?
I'll tell you what's up, Dave. I got my copy of Bizarre Archives 5 this week. It's fucking amazing, dude. It's just like...
Thanks, bud.
I haven't had a chance to dig into it. The hard copy, anyway. I did read a little bit of it before it came out, and I've got a few things that I'm trying to like finish, and then I'm just going to set aside like a good couple of days and really plow into that bad boy. So,
oh yeah,
that's exciting. And yeah, it's funny you mentioned the Western Canon series at the opening, dude. I have been recently rereading our Poetic Edda, and let me tell you, man, Shakespeare gives it a run for its money, but I think Poetic Edda like just barely edges it out in terms of how hard it was to put together. Mm-hmm. And when I was done, I didn't want to fucking look at it. I just didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to think about it. It was in the past. You know what I mean? This is this is just how it goes when you're a publisher and you're putting together these complicated things and whatever. But now in the last month or so, I have basically set myself like the task of, it's not a task, it's a pleasure of sitting down every night and reading one of the poems from the Poetic Edda and really like doing a close reading and like taking it seriously and trying to, squeeze all the juice out of it that I can, basically. Mm-hmm. And let me tell you, man, I like looking back at this thing with some distance now. It's been almost a year. Well, yeah, it's been about like 8 months or so, 8-9 months since it was published. Looking back at this guy with some distance, I'm really proud of it. I'm really, really fucking proud of it, dude. It's just it's a piece of work. It's got everything. It really does. Like it's got the old Norse, which doesn't really do a lot for me because I can't read it, but it's cool. But it's got Tristan's introductions. It's got Tom's general introduction, and it's got like the guy who translated it. It's got all of his like annotations. Like if you read one of these poems in this edition, it's like you fully understand everything that's in there. Like even compared to the Crawford one, which like translates a lot of the kennings, like not literally, and it also sort of like you don't get all of the names and everything like that you get in the Bellows edition. It's like I'm reading through this and I'm just seeing like every line. I understand every fucking word of what's going on. Mm-hmm. So I'm looking back at this now with a little bit of distance, and I'm really proud of it, man. Like I think we really did a good job on that. I don't know. I'm sorry to like toot my own horn here at the beginning of the Culture Dads, but I really do like. This is the kind of shit that makes it all worthwhile. You kind of look back and you see what you've done and everything, and you see how far you've come. And it's like, I didn't think that this was going to be what we were up to when we started back in 2019. But hey, here we are. And we're doing this podcast too. I think this is important as well. Renovating culture for our time, all the shit that's like meaningful to us here and now, today. It's, we love the past. We love the ancient world and everything like that. But we live in the 21st century. So we're 21st century people. We're thrown into this world, and here we are. So, yeah, it's good. I think what we're doing is important work.
Hell yeah. Oh, since we started this podcast, there's been quite a few guys that are sub to it. They reach out to me and they're like, you know what? I didn't even think about XYZ. Mostly it's in regards to some of our takes on modern stuff. Like, I didn't even think about that. There's too many people that get this lens of everything new is trash and everything old is great. And that's just not always the case. Sometimes old stuff was trash. Sometimes new stuff is great. You just have to look at it with the special lens. You know what I mean? Like a lens that's not jaded by, I don't want to use the word romanticism because I'm a romantic, and we've talked about romanticism is a positive thing. Romanticism proper, when romanticism is you have these glasses on and you can't see value in your current time and all you do is mourn for the past, then that's toxic. That's not a good thing. But I've had a lot of people reach out and they're like, you know what? I pulled out because of your guys' episode. I pulled out those albums and I pulled out those games. Or I pulled out those movies. I pulled out this modern stuff that I used to love, and I pulled it out and I looked at it, and now I've kind of rediscovered a part of me. So it's important stuff that we take what we do today seriously. And even though it might not, I've said this 1,000 times, I'll say it 1,000 times more. Although it might not be as grandiose and magnificent as some of the ancient stuff, it's meaningful to us today. And I think that if our ancestors, were alive today, they would think it's dope. They would think it's dope. And I think one of the things that they would think is dope today, or at least in very recent history, is probably sports. You know what I mean? Here's something that I push back. I know you, Mike, I know you got something to say about this. Is I don't like the repulsion to sports ball. Yeah, I get it now. I stopped watching sports ball because they said that sports ball is for homos. It's for trannies. It's not for white men. It's against guns. It's Black Lives Matter. Because it's gotten so completely paused, I don't watch it anymore. But I used to love it. I used to really, really love it. It was a family tradition for me. One of the things that I shared with my grandmother before she passed, rest in peace, was she was a Philadelphia Eagles fan. Die hard. She watched NFL, football every single Sunday, every single Monday night. We watched one of the big American traditions is watching football on Thanksgiving. After everybody eats, you sit down, you watch football, and everybody passes out watching football. That's like the tradition, right? And growing up for me, watching football on Thanksgiving was almost always the Green Bay Packers, and it was a guy named Brett Favre. And I had Brett Favre rookie card. We used to collect football cards back in the day. Let me tell you, dude, Brett Favre was a hell of a guy to watch. He was incredible. So I want to get through and talk about some of our sports heroes growing up and whether or not, they would be, something special in the ancient world. Would they still be heroes, or is it just sports ball? Is it, we could yak about it. So let me hear Mike, I know you got something to say about the sports ball hate.
Yeah. Well, yes. Before I kind of go into that specifically, like, I think it's pretty clear, like any serious reading of history, like, you don't have to read too far into it to see that sports was important for our ancestors and competition was important for our ancestors. There's a wonderful, wonderful essay that was written by Nietzsche called Homer's Contest. That is, it is basically about strife in the ancient world and how, the poets would like joust with each other, and that this was like, they would have these competitions. And, this is an important part of also Norse, poesis as well, with their flightings and everything like that, where they would have these sort of, insult trading insults back and forth in poetic meter and everything. So competition was important, to say nothing of like competition in battle and for glory and everything. So yes, this was very, very important to our ancestors, and even just like actual sporting competition, things like the Olympiad is an ancient thing. And I think that there's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction that one gets, and it's very understandable. There's kind of a knee-jerk reaction that we get when we take the red pill, so to speak, when we really swallow that and understand the depth of the problems that are around today. Like we understand how profoundly and how long ago we got off track, and just the kind of shape that the world is really in. There's a kind of knee-jerk reaction to say that everything modern is terrible and that ancient stuff is much better. And believe me, I mean, I wouldn't have started a publishing company dedicated to the classics if I didn't believe that old stuff was great. I mean, of course I do. That's just I mean, objectively true that like Homer is amazing. But our ancestors were not always reading Homer, right? They wasn't just like they were reading, or they probably weren't reading a lot of anything, depending how far back you go, but they were listening to poets recite stories. They were listening to tales of their forefathers and their ancestors and their family sagas and stories. They were listening to things that have since been lost. And, you know, it's not all like, you're not all listening to like, you know, the Beatles' #1 hits all the time. Sometimes you're listening to some stuff that's like just kind of there and it's filler and it's nice at the moment, and then you forget about it, right? Like this happened in the ancient world too. We have a kind of selection bias because things have been left out, like things that have survived, mainly what has survived is all the good shit, right? So it kind of looks like the ancient world is just like one hit after another, and it's just so unbelievably good. This is in some sense a artifact of the vicissitudes of time, right? Erasing mostly the bad stuff and keeping mostly the good stuff, right? So we kind of think that our ancestors are like infinitely superior to us because of this mechanism, and we underestimate ourselves. This is, you know, what this whole podcast is about. It's about rediscovering what's great here and now. And so that kind of bleeds over a little bit, I think, into people's assessment of our cultural mores today. And believe me, I'm not going to defend liberalism. I'm not going to defend progressive secular humanism or anything like that and say that everything that's going on today is great. But there is a knee-jerk reaction that says everything that like exists today is terrible and you need to just do the opposite, right? It's like the Costanza effect, right? Just do the opposite. And that's not good either, because you're still governed by your enemy. And it's just wrong too. Like there is great shit going on. There's cool things happening today. And I think that one of the things that happens in the nationalist scene that is like, it's pretty pernicious is that sportsball gets a bad rap for deradicalizing men. And to it, like you can understand this take, and to a degree, it's actually true. I mean, it is a kind of surrogate activity for tribalism. It's kind of like a fake tribalism in some ways that really just it sort of like flushes energy down the toilet that would be better used in other ways. So it gets a real bad rap. Sports gets a bad rap. The sports ball meme itself is it's just a denigration of competition and sport and athleticism and all of this stuff, especially among nationalists, which is hilarious because for every fascist regime, like every historical fascist regime in the 20th century, sport was absolutely integral. They would have very, very extensive programs for physical education and competition and sport and everything like that. Like if you look at any fascist regime, you could like Strength Through Joy or like the stuff that the Italians did, and every single one, sport was huge for these people.
And
right?
The communists too.
Yeah, well, for any like sort of like militarized society, sport is going to be the kind of cradle of your militarism. That's where it all begins. I mean, you can't put an AK-47 in a 2-year-old's hand, but you can put a baseball bat in his hand or like soccer ball or something like that. This is where it starts, right? You learn all these things from sports. Especially team sports. Like it's an important part of growing into a man. In fact, I don't think you really even can become a man without it. That might be a controversial take, but I mean, sport was just so important for me growing up. I was a jock. I was playing 3 sports. Like I was playing baseball and football in the summer. Sorry, I was playing soccer in the summer and also either baseball or football. And during the winter, naturally, I was playing hockey, right? So it was like all year long, I was just playing sports. The thing is, though, you only get good stuff out of sports if you actually fucking play it, right? So like you can't learn this shit by watching. If you're sitting there and it's like fandom, you know, you're just watching shit on TV and you're not participating in the actual game or anything, that is when the criticism of sports ball is valid. That is when it does become a, you know, it's the surrogate tribalism, right? So that I understand. I absolutely understand. You can't learn this shit by watching any more than you can learn how to paint or how to play guitar by watching or whatever. But it still goes too far. It's because I think I don't know why, and I won't even attempt to psychologize it or like dig into why people hate sports so much in our scene. But sports teaches you a lot of stuff. But before I go into exactly what it teaches you, Dave, I'm sure you've noticed this same thing about like the denigration of sports in nationalist circles.
Yeah, absolutely. It was like a shock to me that like nobody, at least not nobody, but there's so many people that pretend that they never watched sports. Like it was never a thing. They never played. Now I wasn't, you know, I mean, I've never been a really athletic person. I got heavy legs and flat feet, and I've never been really good at sports. I've always liked playing sports. I've always liked throwing football. I've always liked, you know, wrestling. I've always liked these things. You know, I like to shoot some basketball, play some horse. You know what I mean? I like it. I'm just not, you know, even when I was a kid, I like went to try out for teams and stuff. I can't run very well. I run like a caveman. I've got heavy bones. I got it from my dad's family. Got it from the old alpine, you know, mountain people. So alpine mountain people are not generally, you know, swift of foot. So, yeah, it wasn't in the cards for me, but I definitely liked playing. You know, I loved, you know, playing backyard football is like some of the most fun I ever had. I have a broken tooth in the back of my mouth that I got when I was like 14 from playing backyard football. It was like we're about to wrap it up. It was the last score of the game. You know, I was playing QB. I had nobody open. I ran for it. And there's this one dude, I can't remember his name, but he was this big, husky dude, right? And I was like, back then, I was like a shrimp, right? You know, Big Dave didn't become Big Dave until like I was like 16 years old. I had like a growth spurt. By the time, like between 14, it was like the summer before 11th grade. I went from being like 5'7" to 6 feet tall in one summer. It was I had the most ridiculous growth spurt you ever saw. Right. I had a really awkward puberty. I really did. Like, so that like screwed me up. 9th, 10th grade. First of all, I had full like sideburns, mutton chops when I was like 13 years old. I was like the first kid in my school to have a beard. It was like really weird. So like, I'm like 14 years old. I'm 5'7". I have a boy body, right? I have size 12 shoes. I have a deep ass voice. I'd answer the phone. People would think I'm my dad, and I have a full fucking beard. You know? So I was like, I had a really awkward puberty. You know, so it's like if you're 5'7", 5 foot whatever, and you got size 12 shoes, you know, size 12, size 13 feet, you're not running very well. I remember clear as day. Like I just couldn't. I was like, why are my fucking feet so big? I feel like I have clown shoes on. I couldn't run. You know what I mean? I just had terrible, awkward puberty on top of, you know, also some genetic things. You know, my dad's family, we have tight hamstrings. We're not very flexible people. We're like crabs. That's the joke, that we're crabs. We can't bend. Right. But anyway, long story short, I didn't really play that many sports, but backyard football. So backyard football. Back to the thing. So, last score of the game. I'm QB. I had nobody open. I remember I had one guy open, but he was Butterfingers. I wasn't throwing him the ball. So I was like, fucking, I'm going to run it in. We got to win. I run. I fucking dip this one guy, stiff arm this other kid, and standing in front of me is this big motherfucker, this huge kid. And he was gonna take me out. So I just dive, right? I just dive. I'm like, I'm gonna try to go through this kid. He puts his head down, right? And we just smash faces. just completely smashed. I accordion and I kind of flip awkwardly, but I land for a touchdown and kind of like, I think I got a concussion from that, right? Because I was like seeing stars. I'm like clinging onto the ball, like complete, like dear life, clinging onto the ball, just unconsciously. And I remember everybody shaking me, and then you're seeing stars and everything, and everything comes into sight. I'm like, oh, we won, and I spit out a piece of my tooth. But it was like my mouth was bleeding fucking everywhere. But it was totally worth it because we won the fucking game. It was like one of those games that you get playing, and it's like you're playing the Super Bowl. You know what I mean? You got some guys on the other team that are just your fucking rivals that always whip your ass, and you're just like, fuck them. And you just want to win. You just want to win the game. You don't even care if it means nothing. We played on a field. It wasn't even completely level. There's holes in it. It was just gnarly. There's like weeds and grass and thistles. And we played full on tackle, like prison rules. So smashing faces, picking guys up and suplexing them like NFL blitz, right? It was just
nice.
It was just that's how we would play. That's how young men should play football, to be honest. Right? It's the kind of football that if your mom sees you playing it, she comes out and yells at you. Right? So it was just that's what we played. And I think that those experiences were super important for me as a young man because it wasn't just teaching me it wasn't just my dad like straightening me out, right? Which, my parents got divorced, so my dad wasn't there for a lot of my life. But for most people, it's like their dad's straight. There's a difference between your dad straightening you out and teaching you how to be competitive and teaching you how to be a man and how to be assertive and being thrown to the wolves with a bunch of peers and half of them are twice your size. Yeah. And they want to just like smash you into the dirt and you still want to win. This is one thing that I have a critique of with this younger generation. I've noticed this younger generation doesn't have, and I'm not saying all, it's not all, but a lot of these guys I've met are not naturally competitive. You know what I mean? I remember when I was younger guy, if you called me out for a wrestling match, even today, I'm like, I got back problems. I'm a little out of shape. Like I'm not the kind of guy that should be rising to the challenge of wrestling match. But if you call me out, you're like, yo, I will wrestle you. I'll fucking wrestle your ass. That's it. You call me out and I'm gonna try to win. And if I lose, I'm gonna be pissed. You could be Giga Turbo Chad wrestling champion, and it's like obvious I'm gonna lose. In my head, I think I'm gonna win. Yeah, I'm like, I know how I could fucking beat this guy, blah, blah, blah. Inevitably, when I get fucking destroyed, I'm going to be pissed about it. And I'm going to have excuses. But I got that from growing up, being competitive with my friends and my peers and stuff like that. And I think these young guys, they don't have that. There's been a few guys, I'm like, yo, fucking, let's wrestle, bro. No, I don't want to fucking wrestle you. I don't want to wrestle you. And it's just like, dude, you're half my age. Come on, bub. Like fucking wrestle me. And they won't do it. Or they won't box. Or they don't want to play tackle football. Or you get a little rough playing basketball and they don't I don't know what it is. They're sheepish about it. And I'm not saying that. I'm sure there's guys out there that are athletes or whatever. But that shouldn't just be for athletes. That should be every man should have that competitive streak. That it doesn't matter what it is. He goes into it. He should want to win, even if he's never done it before. Here's the deal. With basketball, I suck at basketball. I am fucking horrible. I can't dribble and like look up at the same time. The ball gets stolen. I'm slow. I can't jump or whatever. If you want me on your basketball team, because I will literally box people out and smash into them to get rebounds. I'm aggressive with steals. I pass the ball. I could also, Big Dave could shoot threes too. I could shoot a little bit, but you want me on your team because I'm fucking mean and I try to win. Right? I had this. So a quick story before I pass it over to Mike. I was a custodian at a really big school years ago, at a middle school, and at this school there's a lot of guys, a lot of teachers that were there that were Division I, Division II basketball players. Like we're legit basketball players in in college, and they would get together and they would have basketball games. Like sometimes they would the teachers would get together. Like if it was like the faculty day or whatever. I still had to go into work, but they would have faculty day. After their faculty day and their meetings, they would get together for a basketball game. I would pull up. I would play with these guys, and I looked stupid as hell. These guys would bounce balls between my legs. Some of the dudes, there was this one guy who was like this 6'7" black guy, and he would like fucking dunk on motherfuckers. Like it was like, real basketball game. I don't give a fuck. I was in the mix. I was like, I would challenge every single rebound. I don't care. I'm in your face defending. I'm using my body as to block you. I was a force. You know what I mean? I was somebody you want on your team, even if I'm stinky. Because it's not because of my athleticism. It's also I'm kind of 6'2", so being 6'2" helps. But it's not because of any of that. It's literally because I'm competitive as fuck, and I hate losing no matter what it is, even if I suck at it, right? For some reason, the younger generations don't have that, and I don't know if it's because they're isolated and they're on too much screens and they don't get to go out and get smashed into the dirt by their buddies. I don't maybe it's because they don't play any sports growing up. They don't have Boy Scouts, or I have no idea why. But it's kind of strange and disconcerting and kind of concerning that that's not there. So if you're listening, you're a younger guy and you're listening to this and you don't have that, you'll make a conscious effort to develop that. And I think a lot of it is sometimes these younger guys, they're worried about looking bad. Like if you're going to lose, well, I'm going to look bad, or this guy's going to beat me, or he's going to destroy me, or I'm like this, I'm going to look bad. Dude, backing out looks bad. Like bitching out looks bad. Like if you are the underdog going into something and you like fight hard as hell, everybody roots for that. You know what I mean? After this basketball game where I stunk it up and I'm no good, like every dude was like coming up, giving me dabs, shaking my hand and shit. They're like, yo, you play hard as fuck, bro. Respect. They respected me. These are guys that like NCAA, like, legit basketball players. Some of them could have like went into the NBA and shit, like legit basketball players. And they, showed me respect because I just played hard as fuck. And I think that's important to have in your repertoire, in your behavior as a man. It's just this competitive nature. And our ancestors had this too. Up until fairly recently, if you called a guy out, he was going to pull up. And could be you challenge a guy to a duel, to a fight, to a game, to a whatever. If you said, yo, I'm calling you out, dude, he's coming. He's going to be like, all right, let's go. And I think that part of masculine culture has been lost a lot. I think it's been abused, right? I don't know. I don't know what I'm getting. You know what I'm saying, Mike?
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is like it's ancient, the way that men respond to each other this way, right? It's like men can sort of like we're really, really good at sort of like sniffing out hierarchies among other men. And a huge part of like when guys get together like in a group and they don't know each other or whatever, there's going to be a kind of like jousting period where everyone's kind of like shit talking each other or like maybe actually fighting even, and like there's gonna be like a battle for hierarchy, and then like once that gets settled, it's like everything's good and like shit can move on. It's not really the way it works for women, and women do not fucking understand that at all,
and they never get along.
Yeah, exactly. This is just the way it works for men, right? And the way it always has. And you have to learn that. You have to learn how to establish hierarchy in a way that's like masculine and upfront and like, overt and everything. That's not like pussy ass fucking like catty backbiting bullshit, right? Otherwise, like no organization will ever be able to like organize itself except in this masculine way, at least if it involves men. And I think like there's many reasons why what you've observed is true about Zoomers, that they are less competitive and everything. I think some of it is hormonal. I think that there are cycles of hormones, like hormonal sort of like ups and downs. I won't go into that because it's a whole other topic that is very interesting, but that's part of it. Another part of it is I think just that sports and physical education is less important now than it was like when I was growing up in the 90s. Old guy rant, I guess. Yeah. It's not as important now as it was back then. And it probably wasn't as important when I grew up as it was like when my dad grew up, because he was a big sports guy. And like a big part of the reason why I was, playing sports all the time is because he basically pushed me into it, which is awesome. And I'm so grateful for that. But I think another reason why the Zoomers are less competitive and less sort of like able to sort this stuff out like in ways that are that traditionally men would do is that we have a massive push for a top-down push of anti-bullying culture. I am pro-bullying. I think bullying, while it's not great, and I wouldn't I wouldn't say that, but I will say that bullying is what happens in life and that you need to fucking deal with it. You need to learn to deal with it. And if you don't let men learn to deal with getting bullied and sorting out that hierarchy, then they are not going to develop into proper men. And when I was a kid, actually what you were saying before about like growing up and being a little small until later on, that's exactly my experience too. I was always like one of the smallest kids in the class until, I hit like 14 or 15, and I had like massive growth spurt and everything. And now I'm slightly above average height, I think, 5'10". I'm not sure, but anyway, it's like I was always a little bit small and like somewhat introverted. I was never been the outgoing guy or anything like that. So a bit of a target for bullies, I guess. And I moved around quite a lot, so I was a new kid quite a lot in schools and everything. So, it happened to me just as it happened to everybody else, and I learned to fucking deal with it. Right? It's like you need to learn how to fight, like how to actually like physically fight. You need to learn how to take knocks. You need to learn how to shit talk people. You need to learn how to project yourself with confidence. And this is the kind of thing that like, with the like rigorous, like longhouse fucking anti-bullying culture that has been so prevalent for like 20 years now, at least. Like I remember hearing about it back then, that men are just not allowed to develop natural anti-bullying mechanisms. They're not able to deal with it. I think that this is purposeful because men who are able to stand up against bullies are also able to stand up against tyranny, and that's not what they want. But anyway, this is all just to say that getting bullied and playing sports and being competitive and getting in fights and everything like that teaches you shit. Sports is one of the most educational things that you can do. It teaches you teamwork, right? Especially football. Obviously team sports, but especially football, where everyone is assigned his role. The halfback is not gonna come snatch the ball away from the quarterback at the snap or anything like that. It's like, everybody has his own part to play, and it's very specific, and there are plays, and you listen to the fucking coach, and like everybody works as a well-oiled unit, right? It teaches you how to do that shit. If you want to organize a nationalist vanguard and you don't have any fucking idea how to do that kind of shit, it's like, good luck, dude. Like, it's just going to be a bunch of people that are fighting, like, a bunch of cats like trying to hurt each other, and it's never going to fucking go anywhere, right? Like, you need teamwork. I think sports could inject a healthy dose of that into like the nationalist scene. Another thing it teaches you grace, right? It teaches you physical grace, obviously, being a physical, like athletic pursuit. Like the mind and the body are not different things, right? And this is a whole other side rant, but like there's a idea that like is embedded in the radical right, the idea of mind-body dualism, or like body-soul dualism. This is like I'll give you the TLDR without going into the whole thing. If you think that the body and the soul are different, then you have no consistent objection to transgenderism. You fucking don't. I'm sorry. So this is something that needs to be done away with. And if you think that just like training your body has nothing to do with training your mind, I mean that's not the case, right? There are too many nationalists that are all head and no heart, all research and intelligence and no physical courage, right? All talk and no courage. Physical mastery emboldens you. It emboldens you to challenge authority, illegitimate authority anyway. And it's like, if you want to work on your mind, you have to work on your body. I can't tell you every time, because I've been doing a rigorous exercise routine for about a year and a half now, almost every day, and every time I do it, it's like going straight after, like, take 5 minutes to cool down and then get on to some actual like Imperium work. That's when I do my best work, right? It's right after a fucking workout. And that's no accident. So it teaches you physical grace, but it teaches you mental grace too, as it teaches you grace under pressure, which is something you definitely need as a nationalist. You need that because people are going to challenge you, especially if you don't hide your power level and you come out with it and you talk publicly about your views. People are going to challenge you, and you need to have that like mental fortitude that you can't get just by sitting behind a computer and reading theory all day. You actually have to have that like mental strength that you will get by engaging in like man-to-man competition. And speaking of grace, it teaches you social grace as well. This is so important, right? After the match, after the game, you don't like go and spit on the other guy. You go and shake his hand, right? Like, it teaches you how to be a like normal, socially adjusted human being, right? And this sounds kind of like, okay, well, whatever, that's sure, that what does that have to do with me? What does that have to do with like our scene or anything like that? I can't tell you how many times I have seen guys get into jousting matches on Telegram or on Twitter or something like that, where they're debating some minor point of doctrine or ideology or whatever, and it just spirals into a civil war. It's just like this purity spiraling just goes way, way beyond where it ever needed to go. And it just like, one guy might be right and the other's wrong, but the guy who's right just like completely crushes the other dude and leaves him like no dignity at all. And it's just like, and now you've just made yourself an enemy, right? Rather than sort of like knowing when to back out, knowing when to back off, like even if you're winning or whatever, and just like, don't make yourself a fucking enemy over nothing ultimately, right? So, I mean, if you are involved in competitive sports and you know how to win, so you know how to win gracefully, right? Like, you know how to win and like leave the guy some dignity where he doesn't like look like shit and hate you, and now you made a fucking enemy, and that's way worse than having like lost the argument. So it teaches you how to win gracefully. It teaches you how to lose gracefully, right? Like when playing sports, when you're a kid, you're just going to cry. You're just going to fucking cry after you've lost a game. Like if you're 8, 9, 10 years old and you like have a competitive bone in your body and like the slightest amount of testosterone, you're going to be pissed off. Yeah, exactly. You're committed to it. Your heart's in it. You're just like, you're invested in it, right? And that's great, and you should be. But you have to learn this emotional toughness too. You have to learn how to fucking lose. You have to learn how to lose strategically. You have to learn how to give up certain ground just so you can make it up, like, later on in the match for some like, this or that. It's important. And you also learn how to pick yourself up and keep trying and not give up, right? And this is something that you can only learn by brute repetition. You can only learn persistence by doing it. You can't read about it. You're not going to fucking learn that way, right? There's so many things. Like like it teaches hierarchy. It teaches you how to lead. It teaches people how to become fucking leaders. So when I was playing sports as a kid, I was often the captain of the team, and I'm not trying to gloat or anything like that, but it's just that I guess I was like, it sort of projected that kind of thing or whatever. And I was also like, I was so fucking competitive. And like I say, I wasn't the biggest guy in the room or whatever, but I was always the hardest working guy. So very often I was like, would be like one of the highest goal scorers on the team or whatever. And so it would happen that, like, you know, I'd become the captain, and that comes with certain responsibilities. Guys look to you to for advice or to, you know, just basically like lead the play as like on the ice or on the field or something like that. Or if you're the assistant captain, you know, you're still in a leadership role, but you need to learn to defer to the captain and to sort of like, you know, give orders or, I mean, a lot of this shit is not verbal. It's not like, you know, you've got like a bunch of 13-year-old boys running around the field and there's like a strict, like, you know, hierarchy of command or anything like that, but this is a lot of it is very unspoken and nonverbal, and men just sort of like defer to each other by default or whatever. You need to learn how to do that. You need to learn to be a leader, and you also, and this is, I think, even more important. In fact, I would say it's way more important for us. You need to learn how to be a follower. We have a word for leadership, but we don't really have a word for followership, and that's too fucking bad. That's really too bad. There is no followership in the nationalist right. I mean, like, you've got guys like that are like, you know, part of our discussion groups and in our chats and everything like that, you know, they're there to enjoy themselves. They're there to, like, you know, have fun and come in and like discuss things and really hash it out and everything. They want to remain anonymous. They don't want to take on a leadership role, and that's like amazing. That's like, we need a lot of that. We need as much of that as we can possibly get. But there is a sense in which, like, there's a left critique of the right that I think is actually pretty valid, where they say that we're all just a bunch of temporarily embarrassed kings. And I think, you know, that might be too strong, but it's kind of valid. I mean, to some extent it's valid that there is a, you know, we in the radical right, especially in the radical right, maybe not so much in the conservative right, but the radical right is generally comprised of people who are not agreeable, that are quite willing to argue with you, you know, in the workplace and everything. It's I think you know, part of the reason why we aren't often find ourselves not in positions of, like, you know, we're not CEOs and shit like that, right? Is because we're quite happy to challenge the boss when we know that he's wrong and everything. So we are kind of like that. It's like a bunch of cats, and trying to herd us is not easy. Playing sports teaches you that, teaches you deference to authority. It teaches you how to fucking follow a chain of command. There are so many other things. I could go on, and I'm sure I will come back to this at some point. But before, you know, this becomes a 20-minute rant here, Dave, I'll throw it over to you. Get your thoughts.
Yeah, when you're talking about this, actually a memory popped in my mind. So when I was in third grade, I played it's called rec league. I don't know. I think it was called recreation. I don't know, but it was called rec league soccer. Right? It's like little kid soccer, but you know, it's pretty competitive. You know what I mean? I was on this team, and we were the green team. There's a lot of times a lot of the teams in the rec league, it was like local, right? You get defined by colors, and then you come up with your own team name. Some of the better teams that had wealthier parents would get them jerseys. So it was like pretty. There's a pretty bad discrepancies in team skill and what they looked like and aesthetics. And my team was bottom of the barrel. Like, we wore, like, our coaches were like, yeah, just buy a green shirt. So you had kids that were wearing just like completely different hues of greens. Some kids just wore like random stuff. So it was like, we did not look the same. My team was terrible, horrible. We had a kid on the team who's actually one of the coach's sons, had Down syndrome. Another kid had like some sort of, I don't know if he had, I don't want to make it a speculation, but he walked with a limp, so he couldn't run right. We had like some special kids on the team, right? We were not competitive. We lost every single game. And we played, I mean, in the beginning of the year, we just like didn't care. We're like, all right, well, there's no way we're going to win, you know? But towards the end, we got kind of tired of getting beat all the time. And our coach, who's a really nice guy, was like getting kind of frustrated. And he's like, you know, you guys need to at least try. You know what I mean? You got to at least try to win. And he tried to teach us. He was like some sort of big shot in school and college or whatever, playing soccer until he got injured. You know, that story. So he like really tried to coach us. And we're like, all right. So we started to get into it towards the end of the year. It's like something like we played like 10 games or something like that. I can't remember. 8, 9, 10 games. So it was the last game of the year. And we're like, our coach wanted us to like win one. And the team that we played against was the white team. And the white team, they called themselves the White Knights. They all had matching fucking uniforms. They had this one kid who was like the best soccer player ever. His parents were like professional soccer players. They were very wealthy. It was just like they were a really, really, for third grade, these guys could have probably beat teams that were much older than them. You know what I mean? They were a very, very good soccer team. They would blow out other teams like 12-0 and stuff like that. Like it slaughtered them, right? So we play this team, and towards the end of the year, the last like 4 games, my coach realized that, you know, I can't run. I don't run very well. So he made me the goalie. Turns out I was a pretty okay goalie. So we stopped getting blown out 5-0 or whatever to, you know, ending up being like, you know, losing games 2-4 and shit like that. Because I was actually a decent goalie. Well, this last game, there's this kid. He had this little bowl. I can't remember his name. He was this little tiny kid. He was the soccer star, right? And he was a piece of shit. He would talk shit. He would call you names under his breath. He would make fun of you. He would call you poor. He would make fun of your parents. Like, he was a little piece of shit, this kid. Everybody hated his guts. But he was fast. He was his parents have been teaching him how to play soccer since he was like a baby. He was like trained to play soccer. So third grade, this kid, he actually went on to be a really good soccer player later on. I can't remember. I don't know. He went to some other school later on, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But anyway, we're playing this last game of the season. And I got to the guards, the kids that couldn't run, right? I had the Down syndrome kid and the kid with the limp were the guards at the goal. Mm-hmm. So it's like they would pretty much try to run in front of people. You know what I mean? Like they were not very good. And we're playing this game, and I just went nuts, and the other kids went nuts, and our best player kid like had the best game of the season. I remember this clear as day. And we're playing this game, and this fucking bowl cut kid, I blocked just about everything except for like 2 shots. This kid could not get something past me this game. I don't know what it was. I was possessed. I was throwing myself on the ground, blocking these fucking balls, and he's getting pissed. He's calling me names. He's saying all kinds of shit. Like, we're going to you might as well just give up, all this kind of shit. Maybe we were 4th grade. I can't remember. We were in elementary school, right? So the last few minutes of the game, we're like fucking tied up, and we're playing, and this kid comes down, and he fucking at the last second scores on me, and we lost. And I was fucking heartbroken, and I cried. Yeah, I fucking cried.
Of course.
And I was like because for the first time, my heart was in this game. I played the best game ever. I suck at soccer. I suck at sports, and I killed it, and I still lost. And when the coaches would line us all up to like shake hands or whatever, and this little piece of shit kid comes by, and he does that thing where he goes to shake my hand and lifts up. He's like, good game, baby, and like walks past me. Well, my boy, the Down syndrome guy, saw that and got pissed. He shoves this kid down and starts beating the shit out of him, right? Gets the fucking coach or the fucking the ref breaks it up. We all get into this big little kid fight. The parents come on and on. The parents start fight. It turns into this big fucking uproar or whatever. But this Down syndrome kid had my fucking back, right? He was like, he's like, we're actually a team now. And he was just pissed that this guy talked shit on me. And like afterwards, like my whole team came up and they're like, we all talked and we're like, that was the best game of the season. Yeah, we lost, but you know what? Fucking, we finished it out really good. So it was like bad sportsmanship and it was like kind of a mess. But I don't know. That just came to my mind thinking about like crying and having your heart into the game. For the first time in my life, I had my heart into a game a sports game I was playing because I felt like we could win and I tried to win. We didn't win, but we did pretty good, right? And that felt pretty good. But wish we would have won. That would have been really good.
Well, it may not have turned out the way you wanted, and it may have lost a bit of face by like crying or whatever, and it may have turned out that like all the parents fucking bomb in and start fighting, and it's like the whole thing is just a shit show. But you know what? That is the kind of thing that welds men together. That is what makes a Mannerbund. And I think it's really important what you said there, that you were finally a team. In that game, you guys were a real fucking team.
Oh, yeah.
This is how men bond. They bond through struggle. They bond through pain and suffering and tragedy shared together. That is what makes men a Mannerbund, a brotherhood. And I think that this is really what sports ultimately teaches. And the only thing that can really, like, if you really have a band of brothers, like if you have like a music band and everything like that, that can get pretty fucking tight. That can get pretty close. Like, there's a dynamism within the group that's like often hard to recreate. But even more than that, I think sports teams have this. And if you have a really tight knit sports team where everybody like works together and all of your skills are complementary and you go through hardship and loss and you come out on top and you have successes and other losses and everything, it's like that makes you a band of brothers. And very often it's those relationships that grow into like friendships that last a lifetime. I think really the only thing that can do that more than sports is military service. Yeah. I think that's really the only thing that really eclipses that. And so it fucking grinds my gears when I hear guys talk shit about sports, especially, it being such an important part of my childhood. I know from personal experience that sports is nationalism in embryo. It really is. It fosters tribalism. It can become a surrogate tribalism when you stop playing it. Of course it can. But it's really where men learn to bond in it as a team, as a tribe, as a Mannerbund, as a clan together. So, yeah, I mean, I won't go any further down this track. I think we've really said what needs to be said about that. But sports are really important, and nationalism needs it. So it's kind of ridiculous the way it's denigrated so much.
I'll say one more thing. So speaking of that soccer team, the one kid that was on our team that was like the only good kid, he went on to be like a jock Chad dude, right? He's one of those guys that grew up really fast, was just an athlete. You know what I mean? Became an athlete very early and played sports throughout all of school. This kid went on and like I was never really friends with him. You know what I mean? We weren't in the same friend circles at all. We would see each other once in a while. Later on, like years later in middle school. So I had a tough time in middle school, dude. Like my family was going through divorces, people dying, my family had drugs, people going to jail. Like middle school was a tough time for me. Not only did I have this awkward, terrible puberty, I was the poor kid. I was had a tough home life. I was a weird kid, right? I had trouble at school, and I got they fucking bullied me, bro. They bullied me. And I remember this one time I'm in the bathroom, and plus I was small. So the big kids, like, you know what I mean? Here's the deal. When big kids fuck with the little kid can't do shit, dude. That's just the way that it is. You know what I mean? So I'm in the fucking bathroom. We're in the bathroom, and the big kids come in, and they start fucking with me. They're pushing me around. They're taking my backpack. They're fucking with me. And I'm just like, nah, I'm like really getting upset because, you know, I'm dealing with a lot of shit. I got more on my mind than a little kid, the young guy should have. So I'm like getting real upset and fucking whatever. And that's like egging him on more. And fucking my boy that I played soccer with comes in, and he fucking shoves this kid, and he's like, yo, get the fuck off him. And, you know, this guy's like a superstar sports player at this time. So they're like, yo, what are you talking about? And he fucking tells him to fuck off. And he had my back, right? And then years later, like we're grown ass men, like years and years later, I fucking see this kid just like we were probably in I'm in my 20s. I'm at the bar at this spot, right? And I see this guy, and we haven't seen each other in years, right? And we fucking just like immediately lock eyes. We shake hands and give hugs, and we hung out all fucking night. So that one soccer season with this kid made me like, we were just kind of like, I think if I ran into him today, we would just be instant boys.
You'd still be bros.
That can, like, when you compete, and the same thing happens in military, right? Guys that are if you're in a military unit with, I've never been in the military, but I've seen it. If you're in a military unit with somebody, that person is your boy for life, right? You play on a sports team with somebody, that's your boy for life. Like if you're in Boy Scouts and you guys go on some crazy thing, when you go out and you form these like bonds, and there's some sort of competitive nature to it, or some sort of pressure on it, and it's when you form these bonds, that shit's like forever. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of guys miss out on that these days. It's like the same thing when you grow up, and if you grow up poor, or if you grow up in hardship, and there's like one of your buddies from the neighborhood that like goes through it with you, that guy's your friend for fucking ever.
Yeah.
And it don't matter if you guys go different ways or whatever, you meet back up, you're boys again. And I don't know. I think that's a special thing in sports, is like, there's a reason that guys play on sports teams, and then like years later when they're old men, they get back together and hang out. You know what I mean?
Well, it's also there's also a crossover there with sports hooliganism and nationalism, right? Like this is a very big thing.
It's a great
in Europe.
For it.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, like, and that's not even like these guys aren't playing it either. This is fandom that turns into genuine nationalism. I think this is the closest we really get, again, apart from military service, to the archaic, you know, Indo-European choreos that goes off and like does like cattle rustling raids with your boys, right? And you've been through all this shit, and like you've lost guys, and you have stories, and you have fucking like a history together, and you bonded, and you've been welded together into this like unit that just absolutely cannot be separated. This is what the fasces is. This is what fascism is. Fascism is the bundle of sticks put together that's stronger together than separately. And this is like sports, especially team sports, teaches you that. Now, I'm not going to denigrate anything like, you know, doing like mixed martial arts. That's great. I fucking did that too for many, many years. And that's
not team sport though.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I wouldn't denigrate a non-team sport. I think that's also important. But team sports has a dynamic that is yet more important, that you really need to have. And if you're a young man and like whatever, I mean, if you're in your 30s and you've never had that, go out and join a pickup league. Make the fucking time. Something you need to experience. It's like I said at the beginning. You can't really be a complete man unless you've had the experiences that we're talking about here. This is absolutely critical to becoming a like fully fledged, fully developed male. This is how men bond. This is how they interact. And you can kind of get that in the workplace. You can kind of get that, you know, in a reading group or something, I mean, these things all resolve themselves into hierarchies and everything like that, but not the way it happens in sport. So anyway, sport is really important, and it really, really bothers me the way it gets just sort of like shoved to the side. And it's like people just say sports ball and they're like, oh yeah, that's fucking gay. And I'm like, no, dude.
Nah, dog, you're gay.
No, you don't understand. Yeah,
fucking nerd.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and, I mean, I think part of it is just like that's what I grew up with, and it was an important part of like my formative development. I mean, growing up as a kid in Canada, you need like hockey is just there. There's just no way around it, right? And I mean, it's kind of unfortunate because hockey really does require a bit of like investment, like monetary investment. So there are like some kids don't get that, and it's unfortunate. But this is our national game. Here's another aspect of sports that is important to nationalism. We have national pastimes. Canada and hockey are joined at the hip. There's just like no two ways about it, right? It's like America and baseball or America and football. These things are part of our national identities. So it growing up as a young Canadian kid, it was important to me. And I don't know, I got into it when I would have been 9 or 10 or something like that, which is a little bit late. I mean, some kids get into it a little bit earlier. I've been playing soccer for longer than that. But definitely, like, as soon as I got into, like, as soon as I learned how to skate, basically, like, somewhat competently, that's when it started to become fun. And that's when I started to become obsessed with it. Like, when I was in school, when I was in, like, public school, and we had design and tech class. I don't know why. It's shop. We had our own funny name for it or whatever. And we had to, like, design something or do some woodworking. I don't even remember what it was, but I made this like little woodworking piece or whatever. And you had to inscribe your name on it. And I was like, I'm just going to put Mike and then hockey. That's my fucking name. Like, people like saw it. They saw that I'd done that. And they're like, oh, okay, well, going to start calling this guy Mike Hockey then. It's like, for a while that was my name, and I was just like, because I knew I was obsessed with hockey, and I was like, I was the hockey dude, right? Like, that was my identity for a long fucking time before I became a musician, and then music was my identity. Before that, it was hockey, and I was obsessed with it. And I had my favorite team. My dad's favorite team was the Toronto Maple Leafs. Unfortunate for him. Because they're the perennial, at least back in the 90s, they were the perennial like loser team. They hadn't won a game, or they hadn't won a cup in like fucking 30 years or something like that. So I decided that I was going to be a Buffalo Sabres fan. Actually, I remember my decision making heuristic for this was just whatever's the closest, and where I live specifically in Ontario, it was like kind of between Detroit or Buffalo or Toronto, and I was just like, I like Buffalo. They got a fucking blue uniform. So that was my decision making process. So I just became an obsessive Buffalo Sabres fan. But my favorite player has to have been Wayne Gretzky. Of course, who else is it going to fucking be when you're like growing up in the 80s and 90s in Canada? I mean, this guy he is a, like, just his name, it's just like, it conjures something. If you say like, oh, he's like the Wayne Gretzky of fucking, I don't know, the culinary world or something. He's like the Wayne Gretzky of like logistics and planning, or he's like the Wayne Gretzky of this or that. You know what that means. It's like saying he's the Babe Ruth of this and that. Like this guy is just such a fucking legend. He just stands so tall above every other hockey player in history that it's just ridiculous. So obviously this guy was a massive, massive hero to me. And part of the reason why he was such a big hero to me is because, from what we were talking about before, I was not a big kid until later when I caught up, basically. But I was always one of the smaller guys in the class, always one of the smaller kids on the on the rink, especially because I played like competitive hockey. There was a lot of big kids who just naturally went into that. I was one of the small guys, and so I had to be fast. I had to have good stick handling. I had to have good puck sense. I wasn't really going to like, I wasn't one of these like bruiser guys that was going to like, smash guys up on the ice or anything like that. I had to be a finesse player, right? And that is what Wayne Gretzky was. I think he was about 6 foot. So he's not a small guy, but like even by the standards of the NHL in the 1980s, he was not one of the bigger players. He was probably like slightly under average in terms of his height, and definitely in terms of his weight.
He's lean. He's about 180 pounds.
Yeah. So he's like definite, like athletic, like lanky athletic build, and a like moderately tall person, but not super tall. So he was not he's not a Ty Domi or anything like that. He's not, and I think he pretty much never got in fights or anything, but he was the fucking boss when it came to, they would say that like back behind, because like in the hockey rink, it's like you've got the goal and you got this like little sort of corridor behind the goal. He would like sit there with the puck and he's like behind the goalie and he's sort of like looking at the players out in front of the goal in the behind the blue line. And then he just like, they called that his office because he would like sit there and sort of like just wait until something would happen, wait until like an opportunity would present itself. And then he would like feed the puck to the guy who's like got the best chance of like doing whatever. And he was just massive, absolutely colossal in terms of his assists. The number of assists this guy got were just absolutely off the charts. And I think he still hasn't been like remotely equaled in that in number of assists because he was just such a strategic player. He wasn't a big guy. He scored tons of goals, but he was a guy who knew how to make things happen. He was a guy who knew how to make his own opportunities. Here's another thing I learned from sports, that you have to make your own opportunities. Otherwise, nothing is going to happen for you.
Yeah, what's the famous quote? You miss every goal you don't shoot or whatever.
Yeah, something like that. It's absolutely true. So Gretzky was a huge, huge hero for me. And like I would say, growing up as a sports hero, this guy was it for me. And he wasn't even on any team that I liked. He was on the Edmonton Oilers. Later on, he got traded to the LA Kings. None of my teams, but every time I'd see this guy get on the ice, I would just root for him because I kind of saw myself in him. He was the same kind of player that I was, and I really strove to emulate him as best I could. So I mean, it's important. It's important to have these guys, these sort of sports heroes to look up to when you're a kid. I think when you get to be an adult, when you get to be a grown-ass man, this is the kind of thing that you kind of do need to leave it behind. But when you're a kid, this is super fucking important.
Yeah. Dude, Wayne Gretzky is like probably pound for pound the most dominant, legendary single sports hero there is. He blows away all of his who are the next best hockey players? You got Steve Orr? Is his name something Orr? You got Sidney Bobby Orr. You got Sidney Crosby,
Mario Lemieux.
Mario Lemieux. Yeah,
Maurice Richard. He's a lot earlier.
Wayne Gretzky blows all of these guys out.
Brett Hull. There's so many of them, but he stands tall.
He's got 4 Stanley Cups. He holds 61 titles still in the NHL. We're talking multiple All-Star. Like, this guy is unbelievable. Unbelievable. If you want to talk about if you had to hold up one guy, the greatest sports hero across all sports, it's probably Wayne Gretzky. This guy is literally just a dominant force. He's a force of nature. And what you said, he changed the game of hockey. You know what I mean? He brought, he was athletic. He was kind of undersized. He was lean. He wasn't a bruiser or smasher, right? And he was playing in a time that bruisers and smashers like really were the shit. You know what I mean? We're talking guys that were 6'4", 6'5", 250 pounds, just smashing guys into the ice, smashing guys into the boards. You know what I mean? I grew up watching the Philadelphia Flyers, obviously. Philly sports, everything. Yeah,
Ronnie Hextall.
Yeah, these guys were
probably the greatest goalie of all time, I would say.
Yeah,
that's so awesome.
Yeah, these were mean motherfuckers. The Legion of Doom, right? They were mean motherfuckers.
Eric Lindros, was he on the Flyers? I think he was.
Eric Lindros. Yep, John Sinclair, Eric Lindros, Ray Hextall. Like these guys were fucking mean. And then later on, the Flyers says you got guys like Jody Shelley. That guy literally all he did was like hurt people. then later on you had Claude Giroux. Claude Giroux was fucking fantastic too. Flyers have had a lot of really great players. But anyway, Wayne Gretzky came into the game during the time where it was a very, very bloody, physical, mean game, and he brought something completely new, and he fucking dominated. He changed the way everybody had to adjust to Wayne Gretzky. Like this guy, he was the GOAT, the greatest of all time, period. There's no debate. And speaking of GOATs, right? I have a few sports heroes, and I actually want to bring up, now we're talking football. I want to bring up one guy that he was probably my last favorite football player before I stopped watching football. And this guy liberated me from my fandom as well. And part of the reason I stopped watching football is not only did this guy fulfill my sports ball bucket list, he also, my team did him dirty twice. So I can't fucking watch those pussies anymore. This guy's named Nick Foles. Nick Foles, he's from Texas. He actually came from the same high school that Drew Brees did. He beat a bunch of Drew Brees records. He went on and he got drafted by the Philadelphia Eagles after playing for the he played for Arizona in the Pac-10. And this guy played on a team that was stunk. He had a Swiss cheese offensive line. He was like, whatever. He got beat in the Pac-10. He got beat in the championship by the Oregon Ducks, who were like the dynasty at the time, led by Chip Kelly. And this guy was just, he could not. I watched the game. It was unbelievable. He just would not give up. Nick Foles, first of all, he came into the NFL. He came into football, period, when pocket passers were started to be considered a thing of the past. So that'll never be true. Pocket passers will forever be tried and true. But this is the time where running quarterbacks were all the rage. Scrambling quarterbacks were all the rage. And he was kind of like, he had a Tom Brady body. Right? He was 6'6", 250 pounds. He's athletic. He could move around a little bit, but he was not the kind of guy that, he was not a scrambling quarterback. This guy, I think he got sacked 10 times in this championship game. And he just kept getting up. He threw a touchdown pass with his left hand as he was getting sacked. Like, this guy was fucking tough. So he comes into, I saw this game. I'm like, I just fucking loved watching this guy. Because it was like, Arizona's going to lose. They're not going to win. And he just didn't give a fuck. He just kept fighting and playing. And I was like, I like this guy. So going into the draft, I'm watching him, and they're like, they're beating him up, because his draft ratings weren't very good. He didn't run very fast. He didn't jump very high. He wasn't super strong. He has a big arm, but he didn't have really the biggest arm. He's like kind of like a 7 out of 10 rated arm. You know what I mean? His tangibles weren't, and that's what they jerk off about in the draft combine, right? He was not really rated that high. He fell to the 3rd round. He got picked up by my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, and I was fucking pumped. Well, he comes in right when they go and they sign Michael Vick, right? I'm sure everybody remembers Michael Vick. He was, human highlight reel for the Atlanta Falcons, considered the greatest scrambling quarterback of all time, rocket arm, black guy. But he was in that dogfighting scandal and got fired and had this big controversy. Well, he got signed back after everything. He got signed to the Philadelphia Eagles. The coach, Andy Reid, signed him. And it was such a big deal that the President Obama called Andy Reid and congratulated him for signing Michael Vick back and bringing him back to the NFL, et cetera, et cetera. So Nick Foles gets into this quarterback competition with Michael Vick. You know, all of the radio stations in Philadelphia. I was living in South Jersey at the time. So we had Philadelphia sports radio, and I'm listening. All of sports radio is shitting on Nick Foles. He's nothing but a backup quarterback. He'll never fucking make it. Michael Vick is the guy. You know, it's Philadelphia. Michael Vick, he's the king black quarterback, the next coming of Randall Cunningham, who is like a beloved in Philadelphia.
That's my guy. Actually, when I was into football, I liked the Eagles too, and I liked them back in the Cunningham days. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. So we could talk about Randall Cunningham. Randall Cunningham was actually, he's not. We could talk about Cunningham, but anyway, Nick Foles goes in. He's like a big, lanky, unathletic white guy from the South, religious guy, and he's just like the radio stations are beating him up. They're like, he's not fucking. Why does anybody even like this guy? Whatever. So he's in this fucking just dog fight with Michael Vick for the starting position, right? On the Eagles. Well, Michael Vick, and you know what? The whole time, Nick Foles is like, I love Mike Vick. He's really turned his life around. Nick Foles this guy, Nick Foles, is like the nicest guy ever, religious guy, says all the right things. He's married, loves his wife, doesn't do any drugs. He's like a good guy, right? And Philly just hated that about him. Well, even Mike Vick was like, dude, I love, like, him and Mike Vick actually became really good buddies because Nick Foles was such a good locker room leader. His team loved him, all this shit. Well, Michael Vick goes down for the season. Nick Foles goes in during probably the worst Eagles season in years and years. They went 4-12. It was horrible, but Nick Foles went out playing every single game like it was, like it was his last. It was probably one of my favorite seasons to watch because this guy had no receivers. He had his offensive line were old and broken, and he just had nothing. And he went out there playing like he had a shot at the Super Bowl every single game. And I was like, this guy is it. This guy is it. The whole time. In Philadelphia, there's this radio guy. He's a fucking his name's Mike Missinelli. Piece of shit. Like completely anti-white, liberal, cuck piece of shit. The fucking worst, right? And he just hated Nick Foles over and over and over again. So Michael Vick goes on. Chip Kelly becomes coach. Nick Foles leads the Eagles to the playoffs 2 years in a row. 2 years in a row, right? He goes in and in one game against the Raiders, ties Peyton Manning's record for the most touchdowns in a single game. Like Nick Foles is this guy that for some reason he doesn't have the tangibles, but for some reason when it matters, this guy turns it on and becomes a superstar quarterback. There's just something special about him. Fast forward, new coach, et cetera, et cetera. Nick Foles goes in. Nick Foles leads, or they draft another guy. They draft this guy, Carson Wentz, right? Who's this next superstar quarterback, et cetera, et cetera. And Nick Foles gets done dirty again. He gets traded. He comes back. Nick Foles leads the Philadelphia Eagles for their first ever Super Bowl in the NFL history, right? The Eagles have not won a championship since 1960. Nick Foles leads them. Last time we were in a Super Bowl was against the New England Patriots, and Tom Brady whipped our ass. And not only did they embarrassed us, and they did this one play where Tom Brady passes the ball to his receiver. Tom Brady runs into the end zone and catches a touchdown like a receiver. Fucking the quarterback, Tom Brady, catches a fucking touchdown pass. Well, Nick Foles does this same play in the fucking Bill Belichick's face in an historic fashion. This is probably, guys, go back. If you're going to watch one American football game, watch the Eagles versus the Patriots in their second showing in the Super Bowl. It's probably the most exciting, greatest game ever played. Nick Foles delivers us a fucking Super Bowl victory. Unbelievable game. And afterwards, the Eagles fucking trade him again. And he like goes on, plays on these different teams and doesn't really have luck or whatever. But anyway, I was like, you know what? Fuck the Eagles. Fuck football. And at this time, it was like, there was like, they were putting in all the gay shit too, right? So I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go down in history as a fucking. I got my Super Bowl, right? My nan, she didn't get to see an Eagles Super Bowl, but I got to see my Super Bowl. I got to see my favorite underdog, current quarterback, win it and break apart all the haters, do it in historic fashion, breaking records. I don't need to watch football anymore. So Nick Foles is my favorite quarterback of all time, my favorite athlete of all time, my favorite sports hero of all time. And on top of everything, dude, he went on and had a tough career and kind of faded away. And this whole time he's like, you know what? Things are going to happen the way that they're going to happen. He never got his big contract payday. He never got big money. He's like, everything's going to work out the way it works out. I did what I'm supposed to do, and it's in the hands of God. And I'm just going to do my career how it's supposed to be done. No hard feelings, no hate, showed love the whole time. And I think he's retired now. But this guy was like a fucking old time sports hero, because that's how, if you're alive in the 80s and 90s, that's how the sports guys were. They were like, they weren't criminals and they weren't into drugs. Yeah. They weren't doing all this kind of shit. So I want to bring up some of my other favorite. I'm like, I just yacked about Nick Foles for like ever and ever, but I want to pass it over to you before I go. And I want to point out some of my favorite sports heroes throughout history that I believe need to be brought up.
Nice. Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know this fella, but I mean, all I got to say about that is it strikes me as you were talking about that it didn't sound like he kind of added up to much on paper, but that he had one of the things that you just can't quantify, which is grace under pressure. And this is important. This is something that, again, something the sports teaches you, that as how to perform when the chips are down, because a lot of guys will fucking buckle. This is not something that you can learn by reading. That's for sure, right? You need to fucking do it. You need to actually participate, get in there and do it and fail and learn and try and fail again until you fucking learn how to perform under pressure, right? And it sounds like that was this guy's thing, that was like the one thing that he was best at. And that is very intangible. It's something that can't be quantified. Look, I mean, a huge part of the problem that we have today with under liberalism and modernity and everything like that, it's the reign of quantity. It's the idea that anything that can be measured, anything that exists can be measured. Well, these kind of like qualitative, virtues that men have can't always be measured. And it sounds like, I think part of what like made this guy so magical, like what made him such a magic player is it's just that sort of inability, that X factor, so to speak, you know what I mean? Where he didn't sort of seem like much until, he gets in there and he rises to the occasion. I mean, I've heard this said about like, certain mid-century German, that it's like, you see these people and they don't look like much until they actually snap into their role, until they actually like get into like what fate has ordained for them to do. And then they're just like they're like a god on the stage, strutting onto the stage and just doing his thing kind of thing. So yeah, no, that sounds amazing. I'll have to watch that game. There's some pretty legendary games. There's like, Canada versus Russia back in the late 70s, it's the World Hockey League. There's some pretty like legendary games. That's one I'll have to catch, because I mean, watching these old games is fucking amazing. I just love it, because there's so much that you can take out of it. Anyway, go on. I want to hear some more about your other sports heroes that you had growing up.
Speaking of sports heroes, so this is a guy, I actually hated him for fucking for obvious reasons. most of my time watching sports. And now that it's all said and done, I got to admit, Tom Brady is the GOAT, greatest quarterback to ever live. This guy is unreal. The reason I hated him is because he beat my fucking Eagles in the Super Bowl. He beat my fucking, he was just, this guy is unbelievable. This is one of those, speaking of X Factor, for you guys that don't know, Tom Brady was drafted in, I think it was the 6th round. They didn't think anything of him. He's slow. He's lanky. He had a kind of, not a noodle arm, but he had a very mediocre arm. This guy was nothing, right? They did not think anything of this guy. Sixth round, got drafted. He goes to play the New England Patriots and starts a dynasty. Let's talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady holds like every record that matters. He's got 7 Super Bowl rings. He's got more. This guy has more Super Bowl rings than like every other franchise, entire franchises. We're talking, this guy is the greatest quarterback of all time. And they thought he was going to stink. And the whole time he was with the Patriots, they chalked it up to, oh, well, it's the coach, this coach. Well, in his old age, in the twilight of his career, he goes to a new team, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, starts all over and wins again. This guy, like, Tom Brady is one of those guys that he's an accurate passer. He can't run. He doesn't do. But if the ball is in this guy's hands and the game is on the line, he is going to win. He is going to win. Unbelievable. Tom Brady, the greatest of all time. And another one, greatest of all time, and I'm going to make this fucking argument, and we're talking to another guy from New England, and there's another guy that, Philadelphia sports fans hated on, but now looking back, we got to admit, Larry Bird. Dude, Larry Bird
for sure.
is the far, let's talk about, if you look at Larry Bird's stats, you can't really say, if you just like look at numbers, you can't really say that Larry Bird is the greatest of all time, right? He's got a lot of great stats. His stats are excellent, but you can't really put him up against, say, a Michael Jordan, which everybody argues is the greatest basketball player of all time. And I'm not going to say Michael Jordan stinks, right? Michael Jordan was absolutely fucking, yeah. He's Michael Jordan. You know what I mean? But here's the deal with Michael Jordan. Is during the late 80s and going into the 90s, everybody said, yeah, you're great. All these teams are great, but eventually you're going to run into Mike in the finals. And everybody that ran into Mike, we're talking, you got the Utah Jazz, John Stockton, Karl Malone, you had the Lakers, you had fucking everybody ran into Mike, right? You know who Mike ran into? Mike ran into Larry. Let me tell you about Larry. In the times that Michael Jordan and Larry Bird faced off, Larry Bird beat him in the finals 4-0. Michael Jordan never bested Larry Bird in the finals. Later in his career, Michael Jordan faced him, I believe, 4 more times and beat him only once. Larry Bird in Michael Jordan's best game, in the prime of his career, Michael Jordan's best game, I can't remember, he put up like 67 points or whatever. His best game, MVP season, considered the greatest season that a single basketball player ever had. In his single greatest game, lost to Larry Bird. Larry Bird was an all-time defender, all-time passer, great rebounder, absolute tremendous shooter. This guy, Larry Bird, he's slow. He couldn't run. He wasn't very athletic. He couldn't jump. He couldn't get above the rim. He was like, let's face it, white guys, there's white guys out there that are physically gifted, but, you can, on the street, you can meet a 6'4" black guy that can dunk a basketball, right? Larry Bird did not have the physical tools that the guys he was playing against had, but he still was an absolute dominant force. And not only was he a dominant force on the court, winning multiple championships, shutting down the greatest considered the greatest basketball player of all time, he went on to be a tremendous coach and tremendous owner and phenomenal, behind in the office. Larry Bird, in my opinion, is the greatest basketball player of all time. And if you don't believe me, go watch his fucking highlights. Go watch his championships. This guy is one of those dudes that if the ball is in his hands, he's gonna win. He's gonna win. There's that last championship they had against the Chicago Bulls where it was when Michael Jordan had Scottie Pippen, right? This is Scottie Pippen, Michael Jordan are considered the greatest duo ever. Double team Larry Bird, and in the twilight of his career, he does a fade, shoots the ball in both of their faces, and sinks it for the win. Completely humiliates them. This guy, dude, go watch Larry Bird. There's a reason they call him fucking Larry Legend. Basketball Jesus. Tremendous. The greatest of all time, period. Period. Larry Bird. Another guy I want to bring up. We talked about him on a previous episode. Dan Severn.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I pound for pound, I would say this is my argument. Dan Severn is the greatest martial artist of all time. Period. Right? Dan Severn could go into any era of UFC or Strike Force or wherever and be dominant. He could be done. Oh, well, he's old. Blah, blah. Dude, take Dan Severn in his prime, put him in UFC today, crushes it, champion. I don't care what anybody says. He's 6'2", 260 pounds, moves like a cat, perfect wrestling technique, strong as an ox, tough as nails, hits hard. The guy is a fucking powerhouse, just a freak of nature. Freak of nature. Let me put it to you this way. There are two guys that have over 100 wins. 100 wins. It's Dan Severn and another guy. Forget his name. His name slips me. Dan Severn beat that guy 3 times. Dan Severn is like one of the only martial artists to have over 100 professional wins. Let's take a look at his stats here. And I just want to throw this out there because this stuff's important, man. This guy, first of all, Dan Severn, here's another thing about Dan Severn. He refused in the era of steroids, was completely natural, refused to use steroids. So this guy's competing against steroid-fueled monsters, and he's crushing them in his 30s, late 30s and 40s, in the twilight of his career as an older man.
I was just gonna say, dude, that is, I think, what like absolutely crushes me about Dan Severn is that he was doing this when he was an older guy. Like he was so dominant when he was like way past his like physical peak. You could only imagine what a 25-year-old Dan Severn transported to 2023 would do. He would just smash everybody. It would just be unfair. You'd have to take him out because nobody would be able to compete with him.
No. He would just be far. Give young Dan Severn sports science of today and trainers, and not just like on his own. This guy would be a fucking force of nature. We'd be talking about him like he's the greatest of all time, which we should be talking about. But he was in martial arts during the time where martial arts was not really regarded as a real sport. You know what I mean? But we're talking. So let's talk about. He's got 3 gold medals. Right, he's got a gold medal in the World Cup 1986. He's got a gold medal in the Pan American Championship 1986. He's got the Junior World Championship as a young man. Junior World Championship in 1977, a young man. He went to the World Super Championship in Tokyo in 1985. Got a silver medal. This guy is fucking unbelievable. Dan the Beast Severn is the greatest martial artist of all time, right? And I also want to bring. Everybody knows about Tyson Fury, dude. Tyson Fury is, I think, a phenomenal sports hero for today. And people are hating on him and everything like that. But I think when all's said and done, we're going to be talking about Tyson Fury like he's fucking Muhammad Ali. This guy is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Watch his fights. You know, people say that, what was that last guy that he beat 2 or 3 times? Deontay Wilder. Dude, Deontay Wilder is a fucking powerhouse. That guy could punch a hole in a brick wall. He was there's a reason he was dominating that weight class. Tyson Fury whipped his ass 3 times. How tall is he? Was he 6'8"? Moves like a cat. He's got crazy punching power, technique. And on top of it, everybody makes fun of him because he's a fat guy. You know what I mean? He's kind of husky, whatever. He like moves real goofy. All of the above. Everybody makes fun of him. Well, guess what? Get in the fucking ring with this guy. And his domination, his reign of terror is going to continue. Tyson Fury. Another guy I want to bring up, boxing, because boxing, here's the thing. White guys get fucking beat up for boxing. But we got to talk about some of these boxers from yesteryear. You know, there's guys like, go watch the matches of guys like Jack Dempsey. Like, these guys were fighting in times where they had like barely any rules, where guys would get their fucking orbital sockets smashed and their eyeballs are hanging out, and they'd wrap it up and continue fighting. Like, these guys were really, really, this was before sports science, this was before steroids. These guys were all natural, just tough as fuck. Rocky Marciano. People forget about Rocky Marciano. Rocky Marciano is the only boxer in history to go undefeated. Undefeated. He's 49-0 with 43 knockouts. And he's fighting tough motherfuckers. This guy was unbelievable. Go watch. Go look up. There's only a couple of his fights that are recorded. But Rocky Marciano was, in pound for pound, one of the greatest boxers of all time. And he did it all with just work ethic and toughness and all that stuff. And he was a war veteran, too. He went over and fought in World War II. He came home and continued fighting. Unbelievable.
No, that's amazing, dude. Yeah, there's so many sports heroes that are like either forgotten today. I think Dan Severn doesn't get talked about very much anymore, or like some of these older guys. It's like, it's so important to us. It's so important to us as like a folk group. And there's so much like genuine heroism that you can find in sport that it's like, I don't know. I hate coming back to it, but it bothers me how much it gets talked down in our thing or whatever. Like, if you want to see real heroism, and I mean real heroism, sacrifice, there's a video of a triathlete that's like just coming up at the very, very end of his like marathon or whatever. And like, you could tell this dude is like, he is on his last fucking legs. Like, he's probably got 100 meters to go to the finish line. And he's just like, he's running and he's kind of like running a little bit funny. There's something wrong. And he just sort of like steps off to the side, and it looks like he's about to fall over. I think actually somebody in the crowd sort of like steadies him, because he is about to fucking fall over. Like, he's not going to make it or whatever. And this guy comes up behind him, and he just grabs onto him, and it's his brother, like his actual brother. And his brother holds him up and like walks him, not like they both run together, and like the one dude is like, he's still failing or whatever, but his brother's like carrying him. And this other guy just like sails past. He sails past his brother. And the other guy won the race. He won the marathon or whatever. But the two brothers crossed the line together at the end of the finish line. And it's like, that is fucking sacrifice. He sacrificed a win to carry his own brother across the finishing line. And I think that is the true essence of sports right there. That's brotherhood. It's not about winning. It's about fucking brotherhood. So there's so much that can be learned from it. It's like, there's a kind of edifying aspect to sports that is just like hard to get in any other way, right? Because of like the aspect of competition and dudes like putting themselves out like physically, bleeding for it, and like getting like genuinely injured and concussed and hurt and everything like that. I mean, this is something like you've got to, like you told the story earlier about like, spitting out half your tooth or whatever after getting like rocked by this one dude. That's is an important part of sports, right? Like, I like for my own part, it's like when I was a kid playing soccer, one of the things my dad used to tell me over and over, and my dad was my coach too. This was an important, bonding thing for him and I. because he coached me in soccer. He was a very, very good soccer player. He played competitively himself. He understood the game really, really well, understands strategy, understands the plays and everything like that. He coached me competitively for many years when I was a teenager. And he would always insist when, I'm on the team, that I call him coach and not dad, and that he treats me exactly the same as every other player. I mean, that in itself is kind of like a lesson in being part of a team, part of a corporative entity where it's really about the team more than it's about any one person, even the coach. But anyway, one of the things he used to tell me is that, like, when you're playing soccer and you're, like, running up on a guy or whatever, he's going to kick the ball. And the one thing you don't want to do is turn away, right? Because if you flinch, if you turn away when the guy, like, you're running to, like, steal the ball from him. And if he knows you're going to flinch, he's just going to pretend to kick it. He'll feign the kick and then he'll just go right around you, right? So you do not want to fucking turn. You want to just run straight at him and take the ball. Well, this was something that my dad drilled into me over and over and over and over again. And of course, naturally, you want to turn away. So it took a long time for me to develop the habit of not doing that. Well, there was this one time where I was, like, running up on a dude and he kicked the ball. He kicked it straight at me and I didn't fucking turn away, and it hit me square in the face. And it hit me hard enough where I fell over backwards and I was just concussed. They had to pull me off to the side. And I just, like, woke up and I'm like, where the fuck am I, dude? Like, what? I didn't even know I was playing a game or anything like that. I was like, oh, I'll have some bacon and eggs, thanks. It's like I didn't know what the fuck was going on. And my dad was like, you did the right thing. You know what I mean? You got to learn the shit, right? Like, you've got to take some fucking knocks. You got to learn how to do that. You got to learn how to be physically tough. You got to learn how to be mentally tough. And these are things that are edifying. They're lessons that are very hard to learn in any other way. And I think that story that I told there about the triathlete, taking his brother across the finish line rather than winning, that is something that it's a lesson that is hard to replicate in anything other than something like the Iliad, you know what I mean? Or like a war story or something like that. Like, it's about brotherhood. It's about togetherness. It's about more than yourself, right? So this is the kind of stuff that, like, sports can enshrine these values. It's very important.
Hell yeah. And it's that X factor is, like, that's something that and that translates to everything. This idea of being able to shine when you're under pressure. You know what I mean? That's something that I've always, thought was important, because you never know, right? I've been through a tornado. I have been evacuated from my house because of flooding. I have been through, like, some, like, natural disasters and shit. And each time, for some reason, I just, like, something clicks in my brain and I go into, like, X Factor mode. And I really believe that I learned this from, being competitive. Not necessarily because I wasn't really into sports in any official way, but from playing sports with my buddies and being competitive with my buddies. There's this thing where you go into this mode where you don't think, you just go into that space. I don't know how to describe it, right? Where you don't do, I don't know. I really don't know how to articulate it.
You just do what needs to be done, right? It's almost like autopilot.
You didn't do what needs to be done. Speaking of playing sport, there's one time I went to go play with some of my buddies. I was driving around town and one of my buddies called me, saw my car. He's like, yo, pull up. We're about to go out and play some football. I was like, all right. So I went and did some shit. I did some errands and I pulled up, and some of my buddies were playing football with some of the guys from the local college or whatever. And, I pull up and a couple of my buddies are playing, and there's some other guys that are playing, and, it's like a mixed crowd or whatever. And they're like, guys are leaving, guys are coming, and they're like, who's gonna play what or whatever. And I was like, yo, I'll play quarterback. Yeah, I'll throw. I could throw a little bit. Like, all right, fuck. And there's a handful, a gaggle of black dudes, and you know how they are. They talk shit, right? So this is back when I had my long ass hair, right? I have long ass hair. I'm wearing a fucking band shirt, and they're like, yeah, right, Wayne's World. They call me Wayne's World. They're like, yo, Wayne's World ain't gonna fucking, you can't QB. So they're like, throw the ball. I throw some stinky fucking passes or whatever, just because I'm like getting warmed up. And like, nah, Wayne's World, you ain't throwing. So we're playing, right? We're mid-play. This game's getting fucking heated, right? And when you play backyard football, you usually play to, who gets to 8 points or 10 points or whatever. And it's tied up, last point of the game. The guy that's playing QB has to bounce. And I'm like, yo, let me try. Let me play. And they're like, yo, all right, fucking Wayne's World. Like, yeah, put Wayne's World in there. Fucking, we're guaranteed to win, blah, blah, blah. So I fucking, we're playing. I hand the ball off. We play a couple things, whatever. We do a couple plays. And last play of the game, we had this one kid on the team. He's like a wigger kid, but he's this real skinny little kid. But he was like fast. This guy could run. He was really, really fast. And I was like, dude, we gotta, this is the last play. I was like, dude, just Hail Mary. Just do a streak. Run straight down. I'll just throw it up to you. And he's like, all right. So we do all this shit. And like, yo, hi. Everybody runs. And I just turn and I just throw this fucking pass. And here's the deal with how I play football, how I throw football. I don't really have a real big arm, but I throw these really nice, soft, like arc. They like these like moon passes, they call. They come and they come down, they land perfectly. Like I throw these nice, soft, catchable balls, right? So I huck this fucking ball in the air and it goes over everybody's fucking heads. They weren't expecting me to throw this ball at all. It lands right in this guy's hands and he just runs. Nobody catches him. Nobody's even close to him. And we fucking win the game. And all the black dudes were like, they like look at him, they look at me, they're like, what the fuck? Like they couldn't even believe that I threw this fucking ball. I'm like, yeah, in your face, motherfucker. I was like, fuck you, eat it, pussy. And they're like, God damn it, what the fuck? They were like pissed, right? And it was just, I don't know what it was. I just wanted to win so bad. These fucking black dudes talking this shit. I just wanted to put it in their face. And for some reason, I just got possessed. And I just hucked this ball up, and this kid catches it perfect. It was like a fucking NFL. It was like the perfect fucking like Dan Marino throw that I just threw. Nice. I couldn't even believe that I threw this ball. But for some reason, like that just happens, and that translates to other things, right? And I think that's something that you learn from playing sports and being competitive. Is this like X factor? It's time to win. You go into this different mode where it's time to succeed. And I think that you learn that from sports. And I think that men especially, should develop that, because you never know when you're going to be in a situation where you need that. There's a lot of these, like a lot of people have fantasies of societal collapse and civil war and blah blah blah. It's like, dude, how do you know how do you know how you're going to react if you're getting shot at, if the fucking, the regime comes to your door to arrest you, if you get questioned. Dude, let me tell you, there's a lot of guys that just going around doing bad kid shit in my younger days that talk tough and act tough. But when the cops pick them up and they put pressure on them, they break and they snitch. Are you the kind of guy that's going to break and snitch, or are you going to be tough in the face of that? Because let me tell you, you might think you're tough. You might think that you're not but they are literally trained. They have like a century of psychological training to break you down and make you snitch. Are you the kind of guy that can do that? You don't know. You don't know how it's going to react. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of guys that think that they're going to be tough, that think they're gonna do well in the face of danger and pressure and everything, until it's on them and they break. I've seen it over and over again. Big tough guys that like that could beat the shit out of you in a fist fight, that are like tough motherfuckers that you don't want to tangle with. They get picked up by the cops. They get picked up by the authorities, and guess what? They squeal like a pig. They fucking whatever. And in that case, you fucking there's no coming back. If you get broken down by the cops, nobody will ever respect you ever again. You're a bitch and a squealer, and that's it. You know what I mean? Once you're a snitch, you're a snitch. And let me tell you, I got buddies that were, in the military, and they'll tell you the same thing, that went over and fought. And there's big tough guys that you crushed it on their PT and with their shooting and everything. But the moment that they're getting shot at, they turn into little girls. And then there's guys that you wouldn't even believe, like little nerdy guys, that when they get shot at, turn into fucking Rambo. You never know. You don't know what somebody's made out of until it's time. I had a work buddy that was a Vietnam vet, and he talked about this kind of shit. Like when the bullets are flying and everything, you wouldn't believe who's tough and who's not. And I'm not saying that it's always the little guy or it's never the big guy. You just never know who it is. He was like saying, like, dude, he was fighting guys that were in the Viet Cong that were these little 5'0" fucking little boys, right? And they were like taking bullets, like you were shooting them, and they just kept coming. Like they're in their final moments dying, and they're still coming trying to kill you. You know what I mean? They're just fucking made out of tough stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, bro. And I mean, part of what cultivates the that toughness, that mental toughness, is just having heroes, right? Heroes are so important for us as peoples, as a folk, having a founder that you can point to, having somebody that you can point to that's like, this guy exemplifies everything it means to be American or a Brit or English or Canadian or Australian or whatever. Having these people is part of what gives you strength. It's part of what makes you what you are. It's part of what gives you a point to kind of rally around as well. I mean, ultimately, this is what makes us as a nation. Like, the academic agent has been sort of jousting with a lot of people on Twitter, jousting with Americans about how America is a proposition nation recently. And I ain't going to get into that debate or anything like that. But I will say this: a proposition nation is a weak nation. I'm not saying America is or isn't. I'm saying a proposition nation isn't a real fucking nation at all. There's something else to it. There's something deeper and more profound that makes up a nation. Ultimately, a nation at a deeper level is a set of commands that is issued by a founder. But at its deepest level, what a nation is fundamentally is it's pointing to a man or a person or a god or a founder and saying that. Just the act of pointing, the ostension of pointing to a thing and saying, we rally around that. That is what it is to be a nation. And sports heroes, in a smaller way than like a George Washington or an Alfred the Great or Genghis Khan or what have you, in a smaller and more attenuated but still very important way, sports heroes fulfill that founder role, that genuine hero role. And going back to the old Greek hero cults, this is the thread. This is like Ariadne's Theseus's golden cord that goes all the way back to Greece, that links up the sports heroes and every hero of today back to the old heroic cults. Is that the primitive sense of the word hero actually referred at that time, and that's a Greek word, it referred to the dead. In the oldest Greek inscriptions, that's what it means. It uses it in that sense. In the language of the common people of the Greeks, hero meant the household gods or the gods of the city that they would rally around. They would rally around the sacred fire that was burning in reverence of the ancestors, right? The heroes were quite clearly the ancestors that were the constitutive principle of the nation, right? The souls of the dead. And the Greeks attributed to these people superhuman and divine powers. The heroes were, they ultimately, I mean, each household had its own gods that was the gods of that family. But the heroes were really the ancestors of the clan, which they would have called the Genos. The hero cult was really the national cult, at least as far as the city-state. It was really the nation in ancient times. Each nation traced itself back to a founder, which was called the eponymous hero. We have that name eponymous. That means, if it's an eponymous album, that means it's a self-titled album. The eponym is named after a person. So each city would be like named after a particular man that had founded it, like the Romans being named after Romulus, right? The hero just was the people, was the clan, stood for the clan, was its symbol. You get this in Pindar, one of the ancient poets. He always, every time he sings the praises of the heroes, he tells you the name of the clan, right? And over time, this hero cult grew to include more than just the gods of the tribe, more than just the founder. Eventually, the hero cult came to include the great men of the city, guys like generals, lawgivers, people of great learning, that sort of thing. The men who did great deeds became the heroes. And if a city had possession of the body of one of these heroes, one of these great men, this was a big thing for the city. It was a huge feather in its cap. Like, I mean, cities would even like plunder other cities just to steal the bones of great men. Like, and this is starting to sound a little bit familiar. Like, it kind of sounds like, one city poaching sports heroes from another city, but it's like kind of in this like, theological aspect of it. And like, sometimes one city would even like court the spirit of the dead heroes of another city. They would they would build a temple to the hero of the other city and worship the hero. And sometimes it would go on for years. And then they reckoned that the hero spirit would at some point, it would like become obligated and have to switch sides or whatever. And sometimes whole military campaigns were like put off for generations while they did this or whatever. It's kind of like the aggressive trade or whatever, I guess, of the ancient world. But this is all just to say that the hero, which is to say the great man who did something amazing that like completely was remarkable, was an important aspect of the ancient world. It was an important aspect of who it is, of who we are, what it is to be from Philadelphia, what it is to be from Toronto, what it is to be from England, is just to be bound up with these heroes, these great men who did great deeds of daring and heroism. So this is in some way what sports heroes do for us. And I think we should be careful before we denigrate that too quickly in the nationalist scene, because ultimately nationalism in its most archaic sense is bound up with people like a Nick Foles or a Dan Severn or a Randall Cunningham or a Wayne Gretzky. That is part of what it is to be a nationalist, at least in its most ancient sense, which is, I think, the sense that we really do need to recover. So, being from a town means cheering for the home team, means being a Flyers guy, being a Maple Leafs guy, being a Red Wings guy, or something like that. So that's important, and I think it's something that we shouldn't lose.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you're talking about it, like America's named after Amerigo Vespucci. You know what I mean? So it's like, I guess we do kind of have, but it's kind of strange. It's always been strange to me that despite, America being named after this guy, we barely like learn about him in school.
I don't even really know who he is, to be honest. Yeah,
he was,
I know he was an explorer. That's it.
Yeah, he was an Italian explorer. He worked for the Medici family, and he was a cartographer, and he did a lot of maps. He was kind of like a big brain guy, and he BTFO'd a lot of natives. So to be honest, I don't I read a book about him years ago, but since then I have not brushed up on him, and I probably should, since he's the namesake of my entire country.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's just kind of weird that, you know, and I'm not going to come at, you know, academic agent can feel how he doesn't like offend me at all. He can say whatever he wants. Now, there's some stuff that he says to other Americans on Twitter. I see that if he like said that to my face in real life, you know, we might have a problem. You know what I mean? I'm going to say that. But, you know, he's got a point to some of the stuff that he's saying. And I think a lot of Americans are very quick to get squared up when people talk shit. And I think that's a good instinct. That's the thing. That's the one part that I disagree with academic agent on, is that he criticizes these guys for like telling him to go fuck himself. That's a good instinct. He should be like, well, that's a positive thing. You know, I could go a lot of English people, when you just like talk shit on England, they just, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I mean, they don't have any. Canadians too.
Canadians are worse for that.
But yeah, like we
have a lot to be proud of, though. I mean, it's something that I would really like to see cultivated.
And despite being a proposition, you know, Americans are pretty quick. Even Americans that are critical of it, you know, among other Americans, they talk all kind of shit. They'll probably even agree with academic agent on everything that he says. But the fact that academic agent says it ain't cool. Like, it's like, we can say it, you can't. And if you say it, we get mad.
Like, I could talk shit about my mama, but you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I think that's a positive thing. I'm actually, out of all the stuff that Americhuds, that the burgers are notorious for, I think that is the most based thing, right? It's like
you guys are still probably the most patriotic in the Western world, apart from maybe the Irish. I'll give it to the Irish too.
Yeah, dude, I'm the first one to talk all kind of shit. But if and I'll tell you, I don't like, if I see that, speaking of Twitter, I like academic agent, and I'm very grateful for, he gave me a platform, and I like his book. You know, I mean, I like academic agent, so I'm not gonna like, you know, say anything or whatever, start shit or whatever. But when I see he's on one of these tirades, I don't read it, because I know that despite he might have some points or he might be right or whatever, instinctually, pre-rationally, I don't like it. You know what I mean? It's like I said, if he's here in the States, or we were like face to face and he said some shit like that, I would get mad. And at the very least, we would have an argument. You know, it's
that's your tierism, Dave. You're cheering for the home team. You know, you like what's native and local, and that's fucking healthy. That's good. That I agree with you. That is a good instinct. You know, my country, right or wrong, is a good instinct. Like, it gets like that gets trotted out as like a liberal bugbear, you know, about nationalism. It's like, well, how can you cheer for something that's not right just because it's yours? And it's like, if you don't understand how that works, then you don't understand anything. You don't even understand truth, because at the end of the day, truth is reliant upon imperatives, and imperatives are particular to a people. My country, right or wrong, is what underpins fucking everything, including epistemology. Anyway, sorry, I don't mean to derail you.
No, that's good. It's all good. Yeah, it actually felt this kind of way. Pretty recently, I ran into a guy. I was at the local like hardware store, and I ran into a guy who was from Poland, right? Ran into a Polish guy, and we're talking or whatever. And I was like, "Hey, man, your English is really good." And I need to stop. And I'm going to say, Europeans do this thing when you compliment them on their English. It's just an instinctive thing, right? Because it's like in America, we don't run into Europeans. We don't even really run into people that don't speak English. You go in the United States is not like Europe. United States, you get into a fucking bus or a plane and you go 1,000 miles a certain direction, you're going to run into more people that speak English. That's just as their only language. It's just the way that it is. We have nobody else to practice other languages with. It's just the way that it is, right? It's not like Europe. So when we run into Europeans and they speak really good English, we think of it through our eyes. It's like, wow, you speak this language very good, right? So I go to this Polish guy, right? And I'm like, wow, your English is really good. And then I remember that they react badly to this every time. They go, yeah, like fucking, of course it is. And they act like jerk off. First of all, if you're listening to this, you're European and you're in America, an American compliments you on your English, fucking say thank you. Just be a nice person about the compliment. Don't be a jerk off about it. Like that annoys the shit out of me that they do that, right? They fucking thank you, okay? If I told you you have a nice shirt, if I tell you you're good at playing guitar, if I tell you fucking anything, you're going to be, oh, wow, thank you. Do it with your fucking language, too. We don't know that you learn English. We don't know that you fucking have to learn it from day one. We've never been to your country. So fucking don't be a dick. So anyway, I'm talking to this Polish guy, and I'm like, you speak, and he goes, oh, yes. He's like, and he goes, and I speak better than Donald Trump. And he says this thing, dude, I'm not even a Trump guy. But the fact that this came out of his mouth pissed me off. And I was like, yeah, well, what do you know about Donald Trump? And he's like, well, he doesn't speak very good English. And I was like, you know what? I was like, why don't you go back to Poland then? If you don't like Donald Trump, you don't like, if you don't like America. He's like, America is fine. I was like, well, it's fine. Well, then maybe you should go back home where there is no Donald Trump and you don't have to speak English. And he's like, I don't understand why you're getting upset. I was like, because I don't like what's coming out of your fucking mouth, dude. How about you go back to your country? How about that?
Yeah.
And he's like, and that was the end of our conversation. But it just like pissed me off. It was like immediately I couldn't control my mouth. He just pissed me. I don't even who cares? Fuck Donald Trump. But don't come to my country and talk shit about, Donald Trump and America and fucking speaking English and all this kind of shit. Why are you the fuck even here, dude? You know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. But the fact that I had I couldn't help myself. I just got emotional. Like, I'm not even emotionally attached to Donald. Me and my boys talk shit about Donald Trump all the time. But the fact that this Polish guy who had the balls like say that to my face got under my skin, right? And we didn't fight or anything like that. I just got annoyed, and like that was the end of the conversation. But it was like, fuck you, dude. You know what I mean? I get to say that. You don't get to say that, especially if you're here. Show some respect, pussy. Put some respect on our names. How about that? Fucking yeah, take your fuck. I might piss off the Polish, right? But if you're Polish and you're over here and you're talking that shit, dude, like get the fuck out of here. Take your fucking take your big round fucking skull shape and take it back to fucking Poland. Poland's based, Poland's great, and love to the Polish, but don't come here and talk that shit. Like that's it. Sorry. Yeah. I just had to fucking shout about that.
I hear you, man. It's like that. Different strokes for different folks, different rules for different people. You're allowed to talk about your family one way. Other people are allowed to talk about your family only another way. It absolutely makes sense. So this is our part of being a nationalist. There is no universalist nationalism. I tweeted something about that recently, and I just do not. To this day, I still don't fucking understand how this is not more broadly understood in the radical right. But there you have it. So anyway, heroes, very important. Part of a nation's identity, part of a nation's founding, part of a local identity as well. And that's the thing, is that localism is so important to us. We need to celebrate our local heroes. Well, there's actually something pretty cool that they have in one of the malls that's close to me. Like whenever I walk past a certain store, they'll always have Hero of the Month for my little local town or whatever. And it's just it's usually some kid that's like volunteered to do something, or somebody that's like an old guy that's like, picking up trash, or like volunteers at like, local men's shelter or whatever it is. But it's nice. It's cool that they celebrate these local heroes, because, localism is the archetype really for nationalism. I mean, nationalism is just localism writ large. So this is what we need to cultivate, and we need to celebrate our heroes. So yeah, there you have it.
And I think there's among moderns, there is an aversion to this idea of heroism. And then one more, and I know I'm fucking notorious for these anecdotes, but a couple years ago, I'm at this like community Christmas tree lighting thing. And during this, they bring up a few old guys that were like living World War II vets. One guy's in a wheelchair. These other two, they got the the veteran hats on, like oldest, they're like in their 90s, like really old guys, and they bring them up here and they're like, this guy got these medals, and these guys were like war heroes, right? And during this, there's like these kids next to me and they're just like yakking and like making fun of them and stuff like that. And I was like, yo, shut the fuck up. I had to tell them, and they fucking shut their asses up, and it was whatever. But I was like, dude, these guys are, you know, why would you, I don't know. They just, they don't have no respect. You know what I mean? World War II is a point of contention. It was a tragic event, and we can have debates on who was right and who was wrong. But at the end of the day, your countrymen that went and fought in that war and came home and did heroic shit deserve respect, period, especially the old guys. You know what I mean? They're not going to be around much longer. Show them the love, show them the respect. And I don't know. I just think that it's like baked into these younger generations that you should be repulsed by things that are excellent, things that are beautiful, things that are great, and things that are heroic. And I think that that's just hideously gay. And if you are a young guy, I think that you should bully any of your peers that have this fucking gay reaction.
Hell yeah. Well, I mean, this is all part of the liberal, I don't even know what to call it, ideology. It's a pathology, really, is what it is, which is to put the center at the margin and the margin at the center, right? The people who deserve respect, you know, elders. And, you know, I mean, we all have criticisms of boomers and everything like that. But the fact is that every civilization that ever did anything, that ever built a fucking, you know, dwelling above one story that wasn't just like a lean-to fucking shanty, every civilization that had anything, that did anything great at all, respected its elders. So, you know, these people are our heroes. These people are our founders, and they deserve respect. So, yeah, I would echo that sentiment for sure.
Hell yeah. All right, we are over 2 hours, Mr. Mike. You want to shut it down?
Let's do it.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. Hails and blessings to each and every one of you guys. And if you're not already, make sure to go over to imperiumpress.org and sign up to the Gumroad. Get hardback books, lots of great perks, and Culture Dads every single week. You can't beat it. Plus, you're supporting Imperium Press pursue their destiny so they may blossom. Exit their cocoon and spread their beautiful butterfly wings and become what they were destined to be. An institution that protects and saves the Western canon from those who wish to erase it. Fucking scumbags. So help us beat the scumbags and go get signed up over there. Go check out what I'm doing. Go over to thebizarchives.com. Pick up a copy of Bizarchives 5. You're going to love it. Follow us on Twitter and Telegram at The Bizarchives. I'll see you guys next time. You're Culture Dads. Age of Sword.